everyone, and welcome to another episode of All My Best Friends Are Digital, a podcast about video games and the stories they tell. I'm one of your hosts, Caitlin Bailey, and with me I have my co-host, Mark Bigney. Mark, what's up?
I'm doing well, except for the fact that accountants seem to want to ruin my life. How are you doing, Caitlin?
That is a damn shame. I am doing just peachy.
That is an idiom I've never heard you use.
I am not entirely sure I've ever used it before. And yet, as always, we are going to be discussing the things that we are currently playing. We're going to talk about the retro game, Brave Fencer Musashi for the PlayStation. We're going to talk about a feature title, which is Aliens Fireteam Elite. And then we're going to do some shameless hyping of upcoming titles in our Shout section. So Mark, why don't you tell me what you've been playing lately?
A few months ago, I talked about playing the twin-stick shooter-ish game called Ruiner. And this is by Reikon Games. And sure enough, they have a new release. And it is called Metal Eden. And I've not been playing the full game. More on that in just half a second. I played the demo. The demo is actually of a shockingly decent length. It's only about a half hour long, which I approve. I actually kind of don't like it when demos are a little too long. A lot of JRPGs fall into this. They figure, okay, well, why don't we give you the first, prelude? And so the demo's 8 hours long. And I quite like it when you get a kind of a taste for the fundamental flow of things, and then it just shows you a screen saying, pay up or get out of our face. I kind of like it when it does that. Well, maybe not that rudely. Ruiner was the sort of dystopian, cyberpunk, grimy future, whereas Metal Eden is the dystopian, cyberpunk, shiny future. So from Ruiner to Metal Eden, we've gone from grimy to shiny, but we're still got the solid cyberpunk kind of thing. If anything, the premise of Metal Eden lends itself very well to a kind of roguelite structure, but it doesn't do that because it talks about how in the future you can download your consciousness onto these kind of chips that are called cores, and you can just take out a core and put it in a new body and transmit your core elsewhere. That's how colonization is supposed to work. And indeed, you encounter a past android body that your core had been using, and the demo involves you going to another... Anyway, it's weird. It's just plot-wise, it is of a roguelite, but the game is not a roguelite. And so there's this weird bit of cognitive dissonance given video game standards. So it's a first-person shooter, and it's very reminiscent in a positive way of Doom. It doesn't have all the conventions of Doom. It does have a sort of high focus on the utility of melee attacks. So unlike Doom the Dark Ages, we agree, kind of went too far in a number of ways and was really focused on melee attacks as a way to dish out large quantities of damage. It was just internalized into the core elements of your offense. In Doom and Doom Eternal, it was more like a specific utility about how, in certain circumstances, you would use your melee to fulfill certain tactical demands that you had, usually related to resource management. So what am I talking about? Specifically, there were the melee finishers that would disgorge health. There were the chainsaw finishers that would disgorge ammo, but were difficult to come by. And in Metal Eden, what you have are these enemies that are heavily armored. And there's a number of ways to deal with them. One of them is to just shoot them a lot, but that is extremely inefficient and time-consuming, and all the while they're attacking you, and so that's not great. Another thing you can do is you can stun them briefly with a melee attack. So far, so good. And then just wail on them and hope to bring their shields down. But there's also this vaguely reminiscent of Ninja Gaiden range-bound element of downing enemies, absorbing their power, and using that to overwhelm shields. So, to get into specifics, what you're able to do is very early on you unlock this ability called the Core Ripper, which is an instant kill attack, and because you're literally ripping out the core from some other Android platform. And then if you kind of sort of eat the core, it's not really clear what happens. There's some sort of notion of absorption going on, but the details are left unclear.
Okay.
And then you can do what they literally call a super punch, and that overwhelms armor. So there's this notion of waiting for the cooldown to exhaust, sucking up the power of a mook, and then using that to overwhelm these armored enemies. And so it's a little bit more tactically interesting than there being nothing. And I appreciate that gameplay element. The shooting is very satisfying. It's very important in a first-person shooter for the guns to feel cool and to feel like the shooting works well. In an interesting move, your default starting weapon is not a pistol. In point of fact, your ammo-driven first weapon is a pistol, and it's very, very hard-hitting. your default initial weapon is a submachine gun, which is kind of weird.
Okay.
Anyway, I just found it unusual in that sense. And it doesn't work off of ammo. It's got that sort of heat-based cooldown thing. It's like, oh, you fired too many shots before letting a recharge, and now you have to wait for the thing to slowly cool down. Whereas everything else works on very scarce ammo supplies. Unlike Doom, for example, you do engage in some wall running, and you have a jetpack, and so the traversal is kind of cool. Additionally, and just as an indication that I don't really think of it as quite a boomer shooter, even though it's got that tag on Steam, in Metal Eden, you do reload weapons.
Okay.
And to my mind, that's not like the defining difference between a boomer shooter and other things. Like, of course, there have been boomer shooters where you reload weapons. But the pacing of Metal Eden, although fast-paced, and it does reward aggression in the form of these melee attacks, is unlike a lot of other boomer shooters in that there's, as I say, a small bit of tactics sprinkled in about defeating enemies in a proper order, about using specific tools and strategies to overcome armored enemies. I don't know. That's just a minor quibble. I'm just trying to give you a sense of how Metal Eden feels. Mm-hmm. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it looked great. It was great pacing. The writing was fine. As per usual, you've got somebody yammering in your ear about the various things you need to do, and it was okay. Minor thematic element that ooked me out, and I guess this is a bit of a trigger warning because a lot of people have this concern. This is actually something that also has been happening recently in the Alien television show. In the Alien television show and in Metal Eden, a cybernetic arm or a metal arm has to, kind of move and shift to unlock various sci-fi prostheses of various nature, whether it's to, reveal a blade or reveal a port thing or a little flamethrower comes out or whatever. Mm-hmm. In both of those shows, the way that happens is that the hand splits apart between the four fingers. So basically the knuckle opens up and the hand kind of bifurcates. It looks creepy. This is a creepy looking effect. And this is true both in Metal Eden and in Alien. A lot of people have weird hang-ups about hands. Yeah. In the same way that people get very, very ooky about eyeballs, kind of, sort of. Specifically when there's trauma involved. And this is not meant to be represented as traumatic. This is literally just how the robot arm works.
Yeah.
But every time it happens, I'm like, ooh, that's something going on there.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of eyeballs, in Terminator, which I watched this past weekend, both, kind of fix up his own arm was super creepy. And then seeing him dig around his own eyeball, although very low budget, was still like, oh, nope, don't like that.
Yes, that prosthetic fake Arnold head, I don't think it looked good at the time, and it certainly hasn't aged well.
I was like, is that a different person?
But mostly, Caitlin, congratulations on having watched Terminator.
Yes,
that's great.
Thank you.
I feel good. So I reached the end of the demo, and I thought to myself, oh, that was fun. Indie studio makes good, a very slick, satisfying, well-paced package. I enjoyed that. I could maybe do more of this, see more of the gameplay arc, go back to Steam. I don't know what I thought it was going to cost, but it costs 55 Canadian dollars. Now, pricing is I think that's like $3 American. I'm not sure. No, closer to 45. Just a little joke. Ha 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 ha. The Canadian dollar is weak.
It is $40. In the US, at least, it costs $40 to buy.
Yes, as a reminder, this is a cross-border podcast. We bring an international flavor. But I have a very poor ability to anticipate what a game is going to cost. Most of the time, if it's by an indie studio, which this is, you could tell me that the MSRP is going to be anywhere from $6 to $60, and I will believe you. It's really strange. Borderlands 4 just came out, and it's pushing new boundaries in terms of MSRP. It's a whole thing. But in terms of indie releases, this is on the higher end of how much things are cost. I'm not saying it's overpriced. I'm absolutely not saying that. But as I've commented a number of times before, the Game Pass lifestyle has recalibrated what constitutes a vaguely impulse buy for me. And in my head, I assumed it was going to cost more or less as much as Ruiner did. And that's not fair because I think I got Ruiner as part of a Humble Bundle, so already I was setting myself up for disappointment. But I was kind of expecting somewhere around 20 to 25. That's where a lot of indie games end up in terms of Canadian pricing. And so when I saw it was twice that, I did get a little bit of unfair to Metal Eden sticker shock. So consequently, I may be done with Metal Eden. It has now joined my wish list, and it will remain there. I will get periodic emails from Steam telling me that it's 10 to 25% off. I will ignore those. Then some winter sale, maybe 1 year from now, some years from now, it'll tell me it's 65% off, and I'll say, Metal Eden, your time has come. And then I will at least buy it. Maybe even, shocker of shockers, play more Metal Eden.
Yeah.
But as I say, the demo is worth checking out, and I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money, but the demo is definitely worth your time. And that's Metal Eden by the people who brought you Ruiner.
Nice. Yeah. So I find it interesting that you played Metal Eden in the same week where we also played Brave Fencer Musashi, which, of course, we're about to talk about in a little bit. But that also includes an aspect of, oh yeah, let me borrow the power that this enemy has, and now I can use it against them or against something else.
It's not within striking distance of Kirby. Like, you're not really borrowing power. It's more like you're just, sucking out the life force of somebody and then using it for a one-shot attack. As I say, in terms of vibes, it's much closer to Ninja Gaiden Ragebound for anyone who's played that recently. It's introducing a weird kind of ordering puzzle element to attacking enemies. Not a thoroughgoing puzzle. It's like kill A before attacking B. That's not what we would call a particularly dense 20,000 field Sudoku or anything like that. It's just slightly more straightforward than shoot the thing.
Okay, so this the power zooping thing, that's just you're just getting some extra power. It's not necessarily a particular power from this enemy.
Correct.
You're just getting extra power that you use. Okay. Got it.
Yes, it is always powering the same thing, and that same thing is literally called Super Punch.
Okay.
I don't know if they thought about that real hard in the writer's room and ruled out a whole bunch of other alternatives, but you absorb somebody's core, and then you get a single instance of Super Punch.
Yeah, it's like a punch, but it's super.
Oh, that's why they called it that. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've been confused all this time.
Yeah.
Now Metal Eden makes sense to me. Thanks, Kayla.
Anytime, Mark.
What have you been up to?
So, I've been playing Final Fantasy VI. Listeners may or not remember, if they listened to our top 10 games of all time episodes, that Final Fantasy VI was on my list.
I would also wager that if any listener knows anything about you, they might have been able to guess. It's like, oh, Square Enix superfan. Does she really like Final Fantasy VI? Gee, I don't know.
Yeah. So I played it to death on the Super Nintendo. I, learned about the realm bug or the sketch bug and triggered that on purpose more times than I should have. Thankfully did not erase my saves. Apparently that was a possible side effect, but I didn't know that.
This is a level of lore and cant that makes no sense to me.
There was this bug where, there's this character called Realm, and she has this ability called Sketch. And if you sketched a particularly complex or really large monster, there was a chance of some sort of weird memory issue where all of a sudden weird stuff would happen. One of the weird things that could happen is it could duplicate all the items, or it would duplicate an item that was in a certain slot, I think, and fill your bags with that item. Really, really weird stuff. But yeah, I've been playing that as a part of my Final Fantasy quote-unquote book club, and I've been really excited because I played, of course, through 3 games that I never played before, Final Fantasy 2, 3, and 5, and now I get to play through one of my favorites. Honestly, I was a little apprehensive, because I was like,
of course,
what if Final Fantasy 6 is not what I remember it to be? And I felt this way
I hear you.
Before we played Chrono Trigger as well. And Chrono Trigger, was like, no, don't worry, I'm still good. And I was like, oh, thanks. Thank you so much.
I felt the same way about Vagrant Story, for what it's worth.
Yes.
I remember the writing being really good, but, Past Mark was an idiot. So what does he know about good writing?
Yeah, I feel the same way about Past Caitlin. And I'm very delighted to find that I still really enjoy Final Fantasy VI.
Huzzah!
Yeah, so Past Caitlin didn't let me down in this case. Although while playing, so Final Fantasy VI is a story of this empire that's determined to bring back destructive magic at any cost, and this young woman named Terra has been captured and enslaved before the story begins, and she is the player character at the very beginning of the game. You could argue she's the main character, but you could also argue that she's not. They have more of a ensemble cast in Final Fantasy VI. But as a side effect of the mind control device that she has to wear, she has amnesia. And I was like,
Caitlin,
oh.
no!
But it's all good. I forgive it. Because, I don't know, I like the mystery of figuring out who Terra is. And I honestly I can't remember if Tara ever knew about her past. So, anyway, I'm excited. I love Final Fantasy VI. I'm very excited to keep going. It has some of my favorite, like, old... I don't know, a lot of my favorite gaming memories are from Final Fantasy VI, like the Opera House and fighting the stupid purple octopus. So,
Haven't heard that one before.
yes, his name is Ultros, and he says "gweehehe" a lot, and he's like a comic relief boss that's just meant to be annoying, but I love him. So,
You know, of all the people who've tried to get me to play Final Fantasy VI, which parenthetically for those not in the know, and I apologize for whom this clarification is borderline insulting, it was originally Final Fantasy III in North America, but whatever. Of all the touchstones that I'm familiar with and all the ways that people have tried to sell me on it, a purple octopus named Ultros didn't make the list, and it really should have. Because mostly, okay, correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah.
because very much like the New Testament or Casablanca, even if you haven't read it, if you've been raised in the West, you know it. You know bits and pieces. This is the one where you can suplex a train, right?
Yes, although they unforgivably in the Pixel Remaster, they did some retranslations of stuff, and now it's called Meteor Strike. And meteor striking a train does not feel the same as suplexing a train. And I'm very disappointed about that.
That is a bit of a problem. Well, that leads into some subsequent questions, but before that, let me just clarify. This is also the one with the clown, right?
Yes.
Okay. Usually when people start talking about the Final Fantasies that were released before 7, I'm always like, is that the one with the job system? Is it the first one with the job system? Is that the one with the clown? Were there mechs in it? I can't. Anyway.
Yep.
Well, it's just games I haven't played. They all kind of melt into one another. What can I say? So I get the touchstones, but the order gets messed up. There's the original Super Nintendo version that parenthetically has been fan hacked to death and back. So there's any number of weird alternate versions you could play. If you were
I'm sure.
Then there's the Game Boy Advance adaptation. Do you have any familiarity with that one?
No. The last time I played Final Fantasy VI was on the Super Nintendo. I don't know if I ever picked up a Game Boy Advance version of it. I probably did and just never played it.
That sounds like a Caitlin thing to do.
It absolutely does. I picked up the PlayStation version, and I didn't play through it on PlayStation, but my husband did, and dealt with all of the terrible PlayStation version issues that existed at the time, which I believe was mostly that starting a battle would take seconds, like time that could be measured in seconds.
Yeah.
And for some reason, he played the whole game.
It was really hard to port a lot of 8 and 16-bit RPGs to the PlayStation, and yet they kept trying to do it.
Yeah, it's like, don't do it, guys.
You and I are big proponents of 2D games on the PlayStation. You can do it. It can be done. Like the load times in Castlevania Symphony of the Night were noticeable, but not terrible.
Yeah.
But there's all these RPG adaptations that were just so... Because random battles are tedious to start with.
Yeah.
And the prospect of having to wait a few seconds while the damn thing loads just strikes me as impermissible and intolerable.
Yeah, I did try to play Chrono Trigger, because I think Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VI were on the same disc, although I'm not 100% sure of that. But I did try to play Chrono Trigger, and I could not get past the first hour, because I was like, I can't do this. Like, I could just go play on the Super Nintendo like a normal person, so.
Unlike those disc-based freaks.
Yeah, I could absolutely understand playing if that was the only way you had to do it, but it was not worth waiting through all those awful load times for me.
So back to Final Fantasy VI. Does it do anything interesting with the battle system, or is it more or less just standard Final Fantasy?
It's more on the end of the standard 16-bit Final Fantasy. Probably some of the more interesting stuff that it does is, Final Fantasy often has like a blue mage type character that can learn enemy abilities. And I think that character is pretty cool. His name is Ga or Gao. And he's, like kind of like that wild youth trope that's, he's Tarzan basically. He grew up in the wilds.
Okay.
And he can learn monster abilities. But the main thing in Final Fantasy VI is the Espers, where you get Magicite and you hold on to it, and then by holding on to it and doing battles, you learn the abilities or magic that is offered by it. That said, I still I don't know, it feels pretty standard to me nowadays. So I don't think it does anything particularly interesting battle-wise.
Sounds like a one-way ticket to Grind Town.
Yes. So, okay. Full disclosure, in all the previous Final Fantasies that I've played, as a part of, like, my quote book club thing, I turned on experience boost and money boost because I didn't want to grind. In Final Fantasy VI, I have not done that, and so far I've been okay. I have zero desire to get all of the, blue magic things that Gaw can learn. I have zero desire to have somebody learn all of the different spells from the Espers. So, therefore, makes it super easy for me to just not turn on boosts and move forward. 6 is supposed to be one of the easier Final Fantasies, apparently, which is probably why I haven't had to grind at all, at least thus far. That's probably another reason why I like it so much, because grinding sucks. It's boring. I hated it when I was a kid, but I could do it because I had unlimited time, and I really hate it as an adult because there isn't enough time in the world.
Hear, hear.
That's Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VI is one of those games that I really don't know if I should give a try, but I suppose I should finish Chrono Trigger first.
Yes. Yes, I definitely think you should finish Chrono Trigger first.
Because the details that I've heard, some of which are spoilers, just strike me as so weird. And that's even independently of the fact that I've already announced that I know there's a clown.
Yes. He is the worst. I hate him very much. I feel like Final Fantasy VI was the first time, maybe not the first time, but one of the first times that a Final Fantasy game tried to have a little bit more, a little bit less like, oh yeah, they're the bad guys, and every single one of them is laughably like, comic book villain bad.
Yep.
Granted, the clown, he's pretty bad. Like, there's not shades of gray to him. But the other characters, there's more. So, I like that.
He's not even laughably bad, because he's not even a talented clown.
Oh, he's terrible. Okay. With that, I think we can move on to our gaming opinions on old school funware segment, what we call GOOF, with Brave Fencer Musashi, which is yet another Square video game released in 1998 for PlayStation. I found it most characterized by how willing it was to be absolutely ridiculous, with the kingdom being called All-You-Can-Eat Palace, the enemy of the kingdom being, Thirst Quencher Empire.
Thirst Quencher.
It was so much. It's very... Yeah, it's a lot. So, Mark...
It is a whole lot. Have you seen the YouTube videos by Picnic Face called Power Thirst?
No.
There are 3 Power Thirst videos, and what they are parodies of energy drink commercials.
Okay.
So Power Thirst is this made-up energy drink, and the Power Thirst commercials are mostly sends up of that. As satire of marketing based on toxic masculinity, it's actually quite excellent. And it's got a number of very memorable lines, and it's just extraordinarily well done. And one of the lame jokes in it is, "You've tried the worst, now try the thirst quencher!" And so every time they talked about the thirst quencher enemy, I was like, oh my goodness, this is Power Thirst. I'm playing Power Thirst, the adventure game.
Yeah.
What is going on here?
That is exactly what was happening.
It's not even just the stupid names. There's a bunch of weird sight gags. Like, they literally do some Looney Tunes stuff. Like, at one point, Musashi falls, and his eyeballs, the little cartoon eyes, remain suspended in the air for half a second, while his body's already gone, and then the eyes fall straight out of a Warner Brothers short.
Yeah.
There's the character who talks in... everything is doth, and everything has ETH at the end of it. So he, sometimes goes even past the realm of absurdity, talking about dotheth and nonsense like that. There's the fact that when he's initially summoned, he's supposed to be the kingdom under threat, so they summon the great hero, and it's the common trope. Instead, they get a kid.
Yeah.
And the princess talks about how he's a runt, calls him a little turd.
Yeah.
And I will confess, I was a little bit amused when the advisor turns to him and says, "Sir Little Turd." And then later on, when you open up the menu, and I saw that the title for being level 1 was indeed Little Turd. So I confess that I found a little bit amusing.
Yeah.
But I found it a little bit amusing, and there's a lot of swings.
Oh, yes.
And I found most of the humor to be not to my taste.
Yeah. It's funny because I definitely did play Brave Fencer Musashi when I was in, I guess high school. probably.
In 1998, let's just say that.
Yeah. And I remember enjoying it. I'm pretty sure I even beat it. I have absolutely no recollection of any of this. Any of it.
Okay. Did you block it out as though from a traumatic response?
Maybe. I don't know. Cause I don't know. Like, there's parts of it that charmed me. I thought the art portraits were cute. Some of the attempts at humor I thought landed. Many of them didn't. I liked how the dialogue boxes would morph to help communicate emotion. Like, it would turn into, kind of more of a comic book, like, star kind of thing. Or what is it? Like a blast or an explosion one, if somebody's, like, exclaiming. So I thought all of that was quite cute. The combat was a little rough at times. There was one boss. I say there was one boss. It was like the first boss. Like this big robot with 4 legs, and it's like shooting steam out of its feet. And it looked like you should be able to get close to it in order to attack it, as long as you go between the steam. But half the time it hit me anyway, and I don't really understand why. The number of times it would throw its giant like ball on a chain at me, and I just couldn't dodge it until I learned that like maybe jumping helps.
Yeah, I learned the same thing. Yeah, yeah, jumping is the way to avoid it.
Very frustrating.
It's weird. It's strange you bring up that boss fight, because I think that's an intersection between the graphical shortcomings, the deliberate choices they made.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming 90s technology here. The graphical shortcomings and some of the gameplay shortcomings, because what they decided to do. And I had an immediate dislike to Brave Fencer Musashi. There's a reason why I skipped it in 1998. And, but it's so highly regarded and people still talk about it as being pretty good. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've gotten past it. I've even managed to enjoy Final Fantasy adjacent things.
Yeah.
Since then, I've gone back to Chrono Trigger. I have since, it took a long time, Caitlin, but I've finally forgiven Square for Final Fantasy VII. Now that having been said, Final Fantasy VII wasn't so much a thing they released as an ongoing event, so maybe I shouldn't be so quick to forgive. But at any rate, everything is in super deformed graphics. I hate super deformed polygonal graphics. I'm using the word hate here, Caitlin, to emphasize my dislike. I hate super deformed. I hate super deformed anything, but I especially hate it in 1998 era polygonal graphics.
Mm-hmm.
As one of the many reasons why I don't like Final Fantasy VII. But consequently, everything is to scale. So your sword slashes are just these tiny little stubby things because your arms are so puny.
Yeah.
And so the range of everything is so short and the bodies of everybody so big. I felt that the hit detection ended up feeling unsatisfying and wonky.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're trying to approach that boss's legs, I have no idea. I fought that boss a lot because it's satisfyingly challenging. I did like how the game was a little bit hard. You will lose, and that's great.
Yeah.
I like games to be a little bit more challenging so they don't end up feeling super boring, like I'm just going through the motions. I do not know if it is possible to be close to that boss's legs when it's ejecting steam without taking damage. Because visually, as you say, there are these blind spots. Just steam gets ejected in 4 diagonal directions, and so you figure, okay, well, if you're in the middle of the quadrant, maybe you won't get hit. I genuinely don't know if that's true, because you're using digital controls, it's an isometric viewpoint, and the steam is at an angle. All these things combined with the incredibly short attack range and how close you need to get to do things, I have no clue.
Yeah, the only way I was able to hit those while it was shooting out steam without taking damage was by doing the spin attack, which I think perhaps has a longer range than the regular attack. That was the only thing I could do to do it.
You mean Lumina, the Sword of Luminescence?
Yes, Lumina, the Sword of Luminescence.
I do like the gimmicks related to the two swords. There's the Sword Fusion, which allows you to steal abilities, and sometimes those abilities are used for weird quasi-puzzle-like things.
Yeah.
I was a little bit aggrieved by the fact that the first time you employ this technique, it is to absorb the ability to shoot gun blasts so as to sever a rope when the rope is within reach and you literally are armed with a sword. Look, Caitlin, I have no experience with guns or swords.
Yeah.
And I have very little experience with rope. But if you told me that I needed to cut a rope that was within reach and you offered me a sword or a gun, I know which one I'd pick 10 times out of 10. But apparently I'm just wrong because the way you sever rope is with magical gun blasts. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Moving on. That part's cute. Like the little tricks that you pull and the little sub-mechanisms are surprisingly satisfying. Mm-hmm. I gotta say that the level design is also kind of cool. There are weird little set pieces that are kind of satisfying. They've done a great job in terms of thinking through various elements of the gameplay. I just don't think it hangs together very well by virtue of some of the even gameplay limitations introduced by the graphic decisions.
Yeah. Yep, I completely agree with that. I just found the combat to be frustrating and not particularly fun most of the time. I did enjoy the feeling of like I did get pretty motivated to kill that one boss. Because I was like, okay, like I just have to figure out how to do it. Great, awesome. But then I got kind of annoyed when I realized, when you absorb a power, I don't even know when it runs out, but I know that eventually you won't have it anymore. And I was kind of hoping you could collect like a assortment of powers and then be able to choose which ones you're going to use or something. But no, it's very temporary.
Yeah, it's very much you need to absorb the power of the enemy to quote-unquote solve the puzzle that it is standing directly next to.
Yes.
It's better than nothing. A lot of action RPGs from the era have practically nothing to them.
Yeah.
And even sometimes the good ones, like Soul Blazer, there's not a whole lot to it. Illusion of Mana, there's not a whole lot to it. At least, they're trying some interesting stuff here in Brave Fencer Musashi. And if it had been rendered in a slightly more traditional polygonal style, or even been a 2D game or something, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more. But as it is, the camera wasn't doing it a huge amount of favors either. Like during that boss fight we were talking about, there are some instances where the boss is taking up literally the entire viewpoint because of the camera.
Yeah, it's like, where am I supposed to go right now, Musashi?
But honestly, I think I might have been willing to forgive the graphics presentation and all that were it not for the strangely unsatisfying comedic tone and the characterization of Musashi himself. Because we have a shonen problem, Caitlin.
Yes.
Video games in general, and Musashi in particular, has a very serious shonen problem. So Brave Fencer Musashi is straight out of shonen central casting. This is the abrasive, overconfident type. The one who is pointlessly rude. And again, who is the target audience for this? Who is like, I want my protagonist to be 14 and unpleasant.
Yeah.
This is what I desire in my protagonists. On top of that, the person who voices Musashi, she has definitely made the rounds. Her name is Mona Marshall, and she has like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of voice credits. And I have heard her in many, many things. And I know that when she is voicing a male protagonist, I am ready to dislike that dude immediately because he's going to be a jackass.
Oh, no.
Nothing against Ms. Marshall.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was doing whatever they told her to do. It's just as an indication of the extent to which I've heard Mona Marshall voice many, many things, she was in both Trigun and Cowboy Bebop. So, already, that's informing a lot of my 90s era media consumption.
Yeah.
And the moment Musashi opened his mouth and I heard her voice, I didn't know her name at the time, I had to look that up, but it's I've heard this person before, and I've seen this character before.
Yes.
And I want nothing to do with this jagoff.
Yeah, I don't know why some video games, especially in the 90s, but it's not limited to the 90s for sure, are determined to give you a protagonist that is just not likable in any way whatsoever.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe he grows eventually. I don't remember from the first time I played, and I didn't get far enough to find out this time. But
well, it's also unfortunate because it kind of sucks out some of the humor that I actually liked. It would be more funny if the advisors and the princess making fun of him didn't make me think, yeah, princess and advisors, he is a douchebag.
Yeah.
The joke is that they summoned this hero and they immediately start mocking him, despite the fact that they need him to save their kingdom. And if I had more sympathy for Musashi, or if he had not immediately identified himself as being incredibly unpleasant and abrasive for no earthly reason, I think that would have given the situation both more pathos and more humor.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
But instead, he's just so small. He's so small and cute. And a jerk.
Is he cute, though? So how do you feel about super deformed graphics?
I don't mind them. In general, I mean, I know I've said this a million times before. I don't like early 3D. I think it just almost uniformly looks bad. Could have just done 2D and it would have looked way better. I understand. A part of me is like, okay, I understand that we had to have the bad graphics to eventually get to the better graphics. But it's difficult to forgive because it's like, man, there are so many games out there that I mean, when I played back in the day, I didn't think they looked that good, but when I play them now, I'm like, oh, wow, this looks like hot garbage.
In my defense, or rather for context, I did play Brave Fencer Musashi with enhanced resolution. So I was just able to double the resolution. When you emulate games and they're polygonal in nature, you can mess with the display resolution. If 2D assets, you can't do that. They're always going to be what they're going to be. And Musashi, when I quipped that, if it were in 2D, I might have had a better sense of ranges and hit detection and things like that. It would not have been a straightforward thing to keep the level design and turn it 2D. Like very early on, there's a huge spiral staircase in the interior of a stone tower, and the camera's doing a great job, and the 3D is having a relatively decent 3D effect. They, of course, ruin it by having 2D, like, bitmap art in the middle of the spire, like, supposedly, like, bodies of convicts that were dangling from chains, whatever, and the intersection of the two looks terrible. But I will defend a lot of early 3D, but you had to be judicious with it, and I don't know that Brave Fencer Musashi was very judicious with it.
Yeah. I mean, all that said, I did think that the voice acting was not bad for 1998. I didn't hate all of it. Like, they sounded like they were trying, so I appreciated that.
Yep. It was definitely not Ted from accounting, that's for sure.
Yes. And I thought the music was pretty good. I wish that I'd been able to hear a little bit more of it. Again, just didn't get super far, but I thought the music was decent.
When I was actually playing Brave Fencer Musashi, I was usually enjoying it. Like, learning the attack patterns of the boss, even with the frustration of the steam out of its legs. There's a couple of really cool set pieces where Musashi isn't just wandering around killing enemies. In point of fact, you spend very little time wandering around killing enemies.
Yeah.
Now, because they're hybridizing it with standard RPG tropes, you do spend a fair amount of your time wandering around in a stupid, boring village, because what pseudo-RPG isn't complete from the 90s without a stupid, boring village where nothing really matters or happens, but you gotta talk to everybody anyway. But there's some serious gameplay chops here, and I wish that the tone had been slightly different, or had been executed slightly differently, or if they made certain other creative decisions, because when it's just about playing around with the different technical elements that they've introduced, they do a reasonably good job of iterating on the action RPG. It's just a shame that it's in this package that I just don't want to spend much time with.
Yeah, I was having fun when I was doing the tower to get Lumina. You could debate how much fun I was having, but when I was fighting that four-legged boss, I at least was interested in going. The place where I first fell off while playing was in the village, because I had to find the mayor. And it's like, I don't know where the heck the mayor is. And I wandered around for a while. I couldn't find the mayor. And eventually I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go do something else.
It's in one of the identical houses.
Ah, great.
That consists of a huge room where someone just stands around waiting to be talked to.
That checks out. Okay, so that is Brave Fencer Musashi. And we are going to take a quick break for some ads, and we'll be right back. And we're back. We are going to be talking about our feature game, Aliens Fireteam Elite. Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about Aliens Fireteam Elite?
Aliens Fireteam Elite is a co-op online third-person shooter. It was released by Cold Iron Studios in 2021. It recently showed up on Game Pass, which I believe is one of the reasons why it caught Caitlin's eye. I've been playing it ever since release, on and off, for a while. It was my comparatively small, comparatively infrequent online group's game of choice, before Helldivers came and obliterated it with a 380mm orbital barrage. And in it, you play as a squad of 3 Colonial Marines with any number of synthetic bots to round out the squad if you're missing any. And there are a bunch of 3-mission campaigns, as well as an escalating raid or horde type mode for endgame content. There's a bunch of different classes. They have access to different subtypes of weapons, different kinds of updates and upgrades. And of course, all of this takes place in the backdrop of let's call it a story that takes place in between the events of Aliens and whatever happened next in the franchise, because the chronology of the franchise is so thoroughly messed up. And even though I'm a fan of the Aliens franchise, I could not tell you in what order things happened past a certain degree of detail. So, Caitlin, I am much more of a third-person shooter guy than you are, I think, much of the time.
Yes.
But I'm particularly curious about your impressions, because rather than you playing things in order, you're coming to Aliens Fireteam Elite having played a lot of Helldivers 2.
Yes.
Rather than the other way around. So what were your impressions of Aliens Fireteam Elite?
I had fun with it. I don't love shooters, but I have been known to enjoy them. As we saw, I played and enjoyed, many of the Gears of War games back in the day. I love Helldivers. I guess third person is great. So happy that it's third person because it immediately gets rid of so many of the issues I often end up having. And I love co-op against AI. I hate doing shooters against other people because I'm not very good and I tend to just get shot a lot. But against AI, it's perfect. But it has to be interesting. I'm sure everybody's played, maybe not everybody. I've played Overwatch against AI, and it sucks because it's boring and it's easy to just do stuff. Everything is just too easy. But Aliens Fireteam Elite, I only ever got to fight 2 different types of enemies, like the aliens and then also some of the androids. But I liked...
The synths, yeah.
Synths, yes. I liked having a little bit of mix, you can mix it up a little bit there. I had fun. I like co-op shooters. Co-op is my jam.
It is a really solid co-op shooter. I can quibble about some of its elements of co-opness. I never felt like I had to worry about my builds to synergize with anybody else.
Yeah.
It's just, you have your toolkit, and you use your toolkit to eradicate as many aliens or synths as quickly as possible, and that is the way you serve your team.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to have highly specialized roles. You can get synergized bonuses. If you're the gunner and you activate overclock, that will give benefits to your buddies. If you're the tech and you deploy a turret, then there are often passive benefits that you get around the turret and so stuff like that. But it's mostly just a rounding error. Mostly you're just mowing down large quantities of aliens. And I think that's the fun... I really think, without casting the shade on Aliens Fireteam Elite, that is the fundamental question you need to ask yourself. Do I have any interest in mowing down large quantities of xenomorphs?
Yeah. Because
the license does a lot of the heavy lifting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I want to call out right away, and that is the sound. And I think that the sound design in Fireteam Elite is extraordinary because, and this is pure nostalgia, this is pure member berries, this is pure reference, the sound of a pulse rifle and then the sound of an alien dying are deeply iconic to me. On top of that, though, Aliens Fireteam Elite does some clever stuff. They have this music stinger. It's just a couple notes. It's very quick. That triggers every time you kill an alien with a headshot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this sound that was part of the score of Aliens. And it's just this little flourish. It's just this little kind of tense music flourish that every time you kill an alien with a headshot, it's great. It was so subtle that it took me a while to realize what was happening.
Yeah.
It just kind of faded into the background to a certain extent, but it was a nice little punctuation on doing so. And I just find it really impressive, because that was one of the concerns I had when I first started playing Aliens Fireteam Elite, and this was, again, shortly after release, so almost 5 years ago. Will it sound exactly like the movies?
Yeah.
And it does. And that's great.
Yeah.
Do you have any similar, fond associations / demands of something that ties into the Aliens universe?
So, I admit that my first impression was or maybe not my first impression. My first thought was okay, I'm thinking back to Alien, where one alien completely terrorized an entire ship full of people.
Yes.
But those people were not heavily armed colonial marines, so that probably helps.
That is one of the strange elements of the Alien franchise.
Yeah.
So many of the different movies have effectively been different genres.
Yes.
The tonal shift between Alien and Aliens is almost total. There are some thematic overtones that are similar. But yes, it's just the body count, the number of aliens, the overall tone is just so very different. And Fireteam Elite is very much in the Aliens mold.
Yes.
Whereas Isolation is very much in the Alien mold. I haven't played Isolation, but it's more about, clamped claustrophobia, single enemy, the unknown. Whereas here, it's just, there's just a large number of xenomorphs. Go kill them. In point of fact, when the game starts, your handler across the radio isn't even what on earth is that? It's oh, the xenomorphs. Okay, shoot them all.
They know what's going on already. We're good.
Now, that having been said, it's not a straightforward, boomer shooter type of paradigm where you're just mowing everyone down. There are enemies that blend in with the background and don't show up on radar. The game does pull a number of survival horror adjacent tricks on you. Like a grate from the ceiling might fall, and that might or might not mean that it's going to be a spawn point for enemies.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of have to wait there in something that kind of resembles tension, waiting to see whether or not there's going to be contact. And that's kind of cool. So, like, even though you're in many ways, you're super far removed from even aliens in terms of tone. Like, for example, one thing that's very, very different is that, again, this is not a criticism, it's just to capture what's going on here in terms of the sense of scale. Like, Aliens Fireteam Elite is to Aliens, to a certain extent, what Aliens is to Alien, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that scale again, because you can mow down a huge number of aliens in very, very close proximity, and Aliens Fireteam Elite isn't interested in worrying about things like acid blood, for example, for most of the enemies. There's one enemy type where it does matter, sure, but 99% of the time, it's not an issue, and so this is just power fantasy in the universe of Aliens, rather than anything remotely resembling horror/action, the way Aliens was. So yes, it is very different in feeling from that perspective.
Yeah, Aliens Fireteam Elite is perhaps one of the few games in the Aliens universe that I could play solo, alone in my office, and not get scared by anything, because it's like I have loads of tools and I'm ready to unleash all of them against all these aliens. Like, it's not scary. It definitely does not have that survival horror thing, even though they, of course, yes, they do borrow things from kind of survival type games.
Yeah, and I think that's just more about, like, selling the licensed atmosphere than anything else. And it's successful. Like, again, even though the things that happen in the game are so far removed in many ways from things that happen in even any of the movies of the franchise, it nonetheless manages to feel very situated in the universe. Again, the sound helps a lot, but I get startled when a stalker jumps on me and starts chewing on my face, which also highlights an element of Fireteam Elite that's so far removed from the franchise. Your characters are so hardy and resilient. Sometimes it's a little bit obnoxious, like, an alien warrior can be standing over you, taking huge full-arm claw swipes to your face. And yeah, your life bar goes down. It's not a great place to be.
Yeah.
But every time that happens, part of me is thinking in the back of my head, it's like, oh yeah, you're toast, buddy. No one's getting up from that. And then, of course, you get up from that because your life bar is huge.
I know, every time it gets into, like, that kind of quick time event, like you are being mauled by an alien, it's like, oh no, I'm about to die. But you're not about to die, because it's going to take off a small portion of your health, and then you're going to get up and mow it down.
Yeah. And on harder difficulties, frankly, the aliens, the increased damage that those events caused, frankly, is dwarfed by the amount of damage you take from friendly fire. So it's not... Because at the basic difficulty level, there's no friendly fire. As you go up in difficulty, which I did because I'd finished everything. And we'll talk about the amount of content in a moment. But I'd finished everything, and your characters get so over-leveled, and they get so many skills and so many stacking modifiers that I increased the difficulty, and then suddenly my flamethrower turret was less welcome on the part of my squad mates than anything else.
Yes.
So I had to turn that off and or drop it in less conspicuous places. But
that's fair.
Yeah, still, you can get in those situations where an alien has jumped you, it is on top of you, it is mauling you, and you will get back up.
Yeah.
It's absurd, but video games get to be absurd.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth it in order to feel like, you're this super powerful Marine, like, just, so the second level made me laugh a little bit, because you show up somewhere and there's some Wayland Yutani scientists or something who are trapped there, and there's tons of aliens, and you're like, hey, we're coming to help you. And they're like, no, I mean, we're fine. We're perfectly safe.
Everything's fine here. How are you doing?
You're the ones in danger. You should probably just leave. And we're like, no, we're not going to leave you behind. I'm like, I feel like we're having two completely different conversations. We're not listening to each other at all.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the elements of the campaign. So much of Aliens Fireteam Elite, frankly, is kind of lazy when it feels like it doesn't have to expend any effort. So, for example, There is no facial animation to speak of.
No.
People, when they speak, do not move their mouths, and it's just these static screens. Mostly we're talking about like a couple of inventory management screens, but whatever. Mm-hmm. All the plot, such as it is mostly relayed through other people talking to your handler. But I did actually kind of like some of the things that happen in the campaigns. Part of that, and I'm about, like, Caitlin, you've admitted to not having played a lot of very influential video games. I've admitted to not having played a lot of very influential video games, or even worse yet, not liking them. Mm-hmm. But I'm about to say something that I guarantee you will get me canceled from civil society. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I think Prometheus is one of the finest movies of the 21st century. Now, when Prometheus came out, a lot of people didn't like it because they thought it was supposed to be an alien movie. Prometheus as a movie is not an alien movie. Mm-hmm. Prometheus is a movie about finding God. But anyway, Aliens Fireteam Elite brings Prometheus more into the fold. It has, like, Prometheus-adjacent content. Mm-hmm. It talks a little bit more about the engineers. It talks a little bit more about these things. And I was there for that. As, like, a supplement to, not as a fix, because a lot of people are like, oh, it doesn't fit well into the Aliens. Yeah, that's fine. It's just this movie. The extent to which it tries to be part of the alien mythos is actually when it's at its weakest. I just like it as a meditation on finding God. The fact that they were even willing to acknowledge those elements of the franchise just shows that they had a slightly more ecumenical view of things to pull on, and I kind of thought that was cool.
Yeah. So I had my struggles with Prometheus.
Many people did, yes.
But I did like seeing elements from it, like, pulled into Fireteam Elite.
Because otherwise, the touchstones that one has for the Colonial Marines are pretty much exhausted by Aliens.
Yeah.
And so they clearly wanted to do a little bit more with the franchise without straying from the fact that, again, these are just Colonial Marines. And tonally, they can't do things related to the first movie, kind of, sort of. It just doesn't work with the enemy count and all manner of other things.
Yeah.
So, again, it shows they were trying to do something. Coming back to Aliens Fireteam Elite after a pause of a year or two or so, I remembered there being a parsimony of content. Because there's 5 3-mission campaigns, so effectively 15 about 20 to 30 minute long missions, and some pretty uninspired horde modes. I say pretty uninspired because as you get up into higher difficulties and as you go through later bits in the horde mode, Aliens Fireteam Elite has one trick up its sleeve, and that is just to give the elites longer health bars.
Okay.
I personally do not find that satisfying at all.
No.
And it's just, you're sitting there with your close combat weapon or your flamer or your heavy sentry gun or your auto gun or whatever, and it's just, all right, how many clips do I need to bring this down? I'm just standing here piling fire. That part's not satisfying.
Yeah, that's always been one of my frustrations in general with multiplayer games when they try to add difficulty just by making things live longer. And it's like, it's not fun shooting a bullet sponge. It just isn't. Please give me literally anything else.
That is one way in which I will insist that Helldivers 2 is vastly superior to Aliens Fireteam Elite. Like, the way the difficulty curve is managed, I'm not going to say that it never gets frustrating, because it absolutely gets frustrating.
Yeah.
But they managed to do it with just a slightly more enjoyable sense of chaos, because it's like, okay, well, you have the tools necessary to bring down a charger. How about 3 chargers at once, bucko?
Yeah.
Instead of making the charger take 3 times as many hits.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And just adding in new enemy types with the higher difficulties, I think also just helps. Like, okay, so you know how to deal with chargers. Do you know how to deal with the charger plus this other big guy?
So all that having been said, like, I maintain that Aliens Fireteam Elite has a shelf life. There's a limit. There's only so many times you want to play through those missions because they're not like, the level design is not inspired. It's just a series of set pieces where you're shooting aliens. Yeah. That's fine, whatever. It's like, okay, walk to this room. Your handler tells you when you hit the button, the aliens will attack. You hit the button and the aliens attack. That is literally what happens in any mission of Aliens Fireteam Elite. Sometimes on the rare missions, they say, okay, somebody needs to go and leave the central area where all being attacked to go hit a button somewhere else. But even that's not a trick they pull very often. And
when it is a trick they pull, they yell at you the whole time for being too slow.
It's true. It's true. And all my memories of that, of those limitations were very much true. But I did, when reinstalling Aliens Fireteam Elite, Steam was willing to tell me how much time I had put into it, and that amount of time was 55 hours. So I'm certainly not going to complain net about the value I got out of my experiences if I was willing to play that much Aliens Fireteam Elite.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly have not put 55 hours in the last week, but I found it surprisingly fun, and I was very happy that I didn't find it scary because I'm a big baby, as we've discussed before. So it was just fun shooting a bunch of aliens, and then later shooting some synths, and seeing how they act differently from the aliens. And yeah, I don't know. I found Aliens Fireteam Elite to be quite fun, and I would probably at least like to keep playing through, the other campaign missions. Maybe even ask my good friend Mark if he would like to play it with me.
I only play video games online with my real friends. Yeah, so we're both predisposed towards the genre. And I think, honestly, in terms of a way to deal with a license, Aliens Fireteam Elite isn't just successful, it's extraordinarily well done. That, I think, is its primary distinguishing feature. Like, the level design is mediocre but passable. The graphics are fine. The sound design is really good, but primarily as a way of evoking the license. And so it's a perfectly competent execution most of the time, but there are a couple of really high notes, one of them being, I think, it uses the license extraordinarily well. So if you're enthusiastic about the property, as I am, that is going to enhance your appreciation of Aliens Fireteam Elite a lot.
Yeah, it was awesome. I do have one related question, but that actually goes to a different game. Did you ever end up playing was it Aliens for the Game Boy Advance? There was like a side-scroller alien game.
Oh, there's one for the DS.
Oh, maybe it must have been DS maybe that I'm thinking of, but it's all 2D, right? And there's different, I think, just soldiers or maybe even Marines, I don't know, that you control. And if they die, there's permadeath and everything. I played that a while back, and I remember finding it quite fun.
Aliens Infestation is what it was called.
Yes, Infestation, that's it.
I played a little bit of it, thought, hey, this is pretty cool, and then didn't play more. So, yeah, maybe sometime we should go back to it. Maybe sometime on GOOF we can talk about Aliens Infestation.
Yeah, that would be fun. All right, I guess we can move on now to our shameless hyping of upcoming titles in what we call our Shout segment. Mark, what would you like to shout out today?
Done it before, I'll do it again. Hades 2, Caitlin. Hades 2,
Hades 2 has a release
date. Hades 2 is coming. The world will be divided into two geological eras, pre-Hades 2 and post-Hades 2. It has a 1.0 release date when it becomes a real game, and all the patient boys, girls, and others like us will be able to finally play Hades 2 in a somewhat finished state, September the 25th. Hades 2.
I'm so excited. I was beside myself when I heard this information. So I'm giddy awaiting September 25th.
What about you, Caitlin? What are you looking forward to other than Hades 2?
Other than Hades 2, I'm looking forward to Cult of the Lamb Woolhaven. So it's Cult of the Lamb DLC that was just announced in the last week, where the lamb is called back to, I'm going to say this wrong, Ingya, which is the forgotten god of the lambs, to their spiritual home of Woolhaven. So despite my agreements with Mark that the base building portion of Cult of the Lamb could be incredibly tedious, and how I really didn't want to have to continue picking up my followers' poop or feed other followers' poop because it's a funny joke, I'm very excited to return to Cult of the Lamb because it's been too long since I played, and I'm excited to see where they're going to take this DLC.
Great. Woolhaven, because it's a sheep.
Yeah,
you get it?
Get it? Yeah.
It's important that you get it.
Yep.
I had a great time with Cult of the Lamb. I just didn't feel like spending a whole lot of time with it. The admixture was good.
Yeah.
It was a really clever formula, well executed, but I just, the base building didn't really grab me, and the combat was a little too shallow to hold my interest as a primary target. Now that you phrase it this way, people who aspire to amass followers, is it really so that they can clean up after their bodily functions? Like, what kind of freak is like, I am going to acquire such influence and sway over this community that they will literally live or die on my whims so that I may sweep up after them?
Yeah. What possesses them to just poop anywhere they want to? Come on, people. Like, I know you're animals, but come on. Have some respect
that, I guess,
for
is
yourselves.
a related frustration, sure.
All right. So I think that will do it for this episode of All My Best Friends Are Digital. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you would like to support us, you can check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/amphad. And I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody. Play some good games.
Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch, you can reach us at allmybestfriendsaredigital@gmail.com. Hope to see you again soon.